If you have your Bibles, turn to Proverbs chapter 3. If you know me, you know I like to speculate and think about things and just wonder based on what we have in Scripture. But do you ever wonder what we lost in the garden? Whether or not there might have been a path to getting any of that back? When you look at your life, what would you need in your life to be able to say at the end of your life that I lived a good life? You're laying your head down maybe for the final time and you know it. You know this is the end. What would you need to see as you look back on your life to be satisfied? There were two men. They were born the same year in a small little village. But they lived very different lives, except they had one common, unexpected hobby. They were both gardeners. Phil lived fast, and he gardened like he lived. His motto was big, big, big in everything. At 18, he'd left the village behind. He lived a life of adventure, and his garden was full of the things that he'd bring back from the trips that he went on. But that same drive was often his downfall in the rest of his life. By 40, he was divorced twice. He had burned through most of his friendships. And the exotic plants that he brought back, most of them couldn't last in the garden that he planted them more than a season or two outside of their native habitat. They'd die, but no sooner would they wither than he'd rip them up and put something new in to replace them with. Something bigger and better. Thomas was different from Phil. He lived a different life. And he gardened different. He was slower, rested, rooted in things. He married young, and he stayed married. He raised 3 kids, worked as a handyman, and kept a small garden out back. You were more apt to see Thomas in a rocking chair than on an airplane. His friendships were deep. He bore scars, most of them had healed. His laugh was genuine. His anger was rare. He was a content man. And his garden, like his life, was simple. His favorite things that were native to his favorite place, home. Though they took different paths, they both arrived at the same place that everyone seems to arrive at. They were both old. And their divergent paths crossed at the death of a childhood friend. They met up at the funeral. Phil needed to get there and then rush off to catch a flight as soon as the funeral was over. Thomas had plans on just walking back home. He liked to walk. He enjoyed the time to think. And as they left the cemetery, Phil caught up with Thomas and said, "Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if you'd ever left this place? If you'd ever seen more, ever done more, ever lived a little?" Thomas just kept walking and asked Phil, "Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like had you stayed?" Phil started to step in time with Thomas as they walk, and he asked him, "Do you mind if I see your garden?" "Don't you have a flight to catch?" Thomas asked. "I'll catch the next one," Phil said. "Frequent flyer miles." And Thomas led him back to his house in that old neighborhood, took him inside, showed him a picture of his beloved wife, which he kissed affectionately, and then gave him a tour of the garden. And as the two sat in rocking chairs on the back porch watching the sun go down, Thomas whispered to Phil, or Phil whispered to Thomas, "Your garden, I think it grew better fruit." You see, God tells us in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 6, it says, "Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil and striving after the wind. There's just something to what the world would call a normal life, rooted and rested, pleasant and peaceful. Something that in the end brings a satisfaction that we may not understand why. There is an echo in that life, an echo of a garden that we were born to tend, but one which seems always to lie just west of here. See, we're on a path in the book of Proverbs. We're on a path of life. We're walking it. Some of us are running it. And along the way, our Father is trying to tell us which path is a good one, which is going to lead to a good life, to a satisfied life, to good fruit, to better fruit. And it's good because along this path, our Father promises us ice cream at the end. I don't know if you've ever done this, but when your kids are out, maybe you have to take them out to run errands, and it's going to be an all-day thing, and it's hot, and you've got a lot you need to do, and you know that it's stressing you, and you've got 30 years of practicing your self-control, and they've only had 5, and so you're trying to make it easier on them, so you say, hey, if we get through this, you know what I'm going to get you at the end? I'm going to get you some ice cream. Right? Just to look, you make it through this, you do what you're supposed to do, and at the end, I promise you, ice cream. Well, our Father here is laying before us promises, blessings that are going to come if we will heed His word about wisdom and stay on the path all the way to the end. Because what's happened is He's saying, look, if you'll follow the path of chapter 2, if you will remember the rules of chapter 3, here are the promises that I will give you at the end of the day. And we saw the first of those blessings last week, that when we get this wisdom, if we do what chapter 2 says, and we do it, listen to the rules of chapter 3, when we get this wisdom, we're going to get something more precious than silver, more precious than gold, more precious than jewels. And in fact, we're going to get something that nothing we might desire even compares to this, if we'll stay true to the path. But again, that's not the only promise. Wisdom is not just precious. That's not the only reason that Solomon is going to lay out. Look, you should want wisdom because here's the blessing that comes with it. There is even more. So let's stand together as we'll read Proverbs chapter 3. Beginning in verse 13. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. For the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She's more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding He established the heavens. By His knowledge the deeps broke open, and the clouds dropped down the dew. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. All right, you may be seated. So wisdom is precious, but wisdom is not just precious. What is the next thing that we saw here, starting in verse 16, is that wisdom is also pleasant. Wisdom is precious. Wisdom is also pleasant. Long life is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness. So wisdom brings with her a few things. What blessings does she bring? She brings with her a long life. She holds long life in her right hand, meaning it's hers to give. You want to live longer? I mean, the Bible tells us we, on our own, can't add a single hour to our life. But you know who can add to your life? wisdom. She holds it in her hand. I love the words here because it can seem like it's promising just that you'll be old, but what it's actually promising is what we saw in verse 2 at the start of this chapter, where it says length of days and years of life. Wisdom isn't just promising to add a lot of years to your life. Wisdom is promising a lot of good years to your life. As we would say, she is promising a good long life. Some people live long, but they seem miserable. They're just upset about everything. They don't seem like they're having any fun, but they seem to be hanging on tooth and nail to existing. They've got a long life, but not a good one. Others seem to live a good life, but so short. They die young. Wisdom holds in her hand the key to both of those things. And what's crazy is that promise, that's just what's in her right hand. She holds that, but that's just in her right hand. She's got another hand too. In her left hand is what? In her left hand is success. Success of two kinds: wealth and honor. And we know what riches are. We looked at this last week. What is honor? Well, actually, these two words are often paired together in the book of Proverbs. We actually saw them paired together before in verse 9. If you remember back in verse 9, it told us what we should do, and it says that we're to honor the Lord with our wealth. Well, here these words come up again, and so how did I say you should translate honor back in verse 9? It's how I think you should translate this, so we can know what does it mean that we're going to get honor, that she's got honor in her, riches and honor are in her left hand. What does that mean that God will give us honor? Well, how did we translate it when we translated verse 9? Translate it the same way here: glory. It's the word for glory. Again, understanding what glory is, weightiness. So when she's promising riches and honor, what she's promising when she says riches and glory is she will give a weightiness, a significance to your life, where your life will have meant something. It would have mattered. There'll be a heaviness to it, a worthiness, a weightiness. So in her left hand, wisdom holds wealth and glory. So many people want their life to mean something. And when they're looking back at their life as they get older, they go, did my life mean anything? They want it to have weight. They want it to have affected anything in this life. Well, here we see God tell us that wisdom holds that promise. Wisdom promises a long life and a good one. And here we see that's not just in your eyes. That you want to live a long life on earth, wisdom holds that key. Wisdom can give you that. You want your life not just to be long, but to be filled with trouble? No. What do you want? You want a good life and a long one. Well, you don't need to turn to anyone else for those things. Wisdom holds the key to that. You want a good and long life? That's what wisdom is offering you. You want a life that matters, where your life mattered? You want a life that means something? She holds that key too. A good life and a long one. She's the one who's got the key to that. A life that matters, that is weighty. She has that as well. Wisdom holds the key to a life of worth, where your life will have value. And what promise comes right after that? Her ways are ways of pleasantness. The ways of wisdom are pleasant ways. Now, I love this word here because the word pleasant in the Hebrew can mean everything from good, that something is good. That is a pleasant hamburger, right? To kindness, that is a pleasant person. And it carries all of those ideas. It's a word that can be used to describe all of those things. It just means that something is just plain good. And when it comes to life, the ways of wisdom are just plain good ways. Her ways are ways of just goodness. It's just a good life, a pleasant life. And we know this. where you go down her paths and you're going to know this was a good choice. This is a good choice. This is a good path. Have you ever in your life gone down a path and along the way started thinking, I think I made the wrong choice here? I've done that several times. Normally, when I think I've got a few more minutes of sunlight, I think I can make it out of the woods before things are going to... And then about 5 minutes into trying to leave the woods, I go, I have no idea where I am. I could be in another state right now. And I pull up the flashlight and I go, nope, doesn't help. But I remember vividly one time where I knew I'd made the wrong choice. I was trying to get to the Capitol. This is when I lived in Oklahoma City. And I was trying to get to the Capitol. And it's like in Tulsa. What they do is when they get to a big city, they want to put ways to get off of the freeway, but not ways to get back onto it that are the same ways, right? So you can get off here, but getting on there, no. We're going to put the get on somewhere else. Good luck finding it. And so I had gotten off, and I was trying to figure out where to go, how to get back on because I'd taken the wrong exit. And I remember as I'm lost, trying to see if one of these side streets is going to have a sign that says, it was 244, says, or 235, 235 this way. Oh, that's where I need to go. And I was slowly creeping and looking. And as I was creeping, I'm looking at the people that are watching me, slowly creeping, and I realize I made a wrong choice. Like, this is not where I belong. And it was very clear to them that they also thought this is not where I belong. I mean, there wasn't Africans, so they weren't like yelling Mzungu as I drove by, but they were very much like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I don't know, and I don't know where to go. I knew that I'd made the wrong choice. And so many times, our struggles in life are when we get on a path and we're taking that path and we realize this is not a good one because it's not pleasant. This is not a pleasant path to be on. And the reality is that every sin, every path of sin is an unpleasant path. But the problem with every path of sin is that they all begin with gates of false promises. So no path of sin is like, hey, come this way. It's going to be the worst. They don't start out like that. They start out making great promises. The promises of sin always start out with the best promises. It always looks so good. But when you get past the gate, you quickly begin to wonder where all the fun went, where all the promises went. And the lies go even further because they even mislabel the gate. The label of the gate sometimes will say wisdom, and you'll think you're even making the wise choice, but it's not a way of wisdom. It's actually a way of folly. It's like Eve holding that fruit. What did it say about that fruit? It was a delight to her eyes. And it did promise to make one wise. And like Eve, by the time you want to get off that path, you find that you're already out of the garden. I remember times when I would sin, and it's still true every time I sin now, where in the moment, often sin seems like the good path. It seems like it's going to be the pleasant path. It might even deceive me into thinking it's actually the wise path, where I can make excuses, and this is actually a good choice for me. This is actually what I should do. In the same way the serpent was able to fool Eve into thinking, yeah, eating the fruit is actually going to make you wise. This is a good thing to do. I remember when I was younger entering sinful choices and doing so with a smile, not an impish smile, not like, aha, I'm about to get away with this, but just a big, dumb idiot smile. One we're going to see in Proverbs that sin is going to use to cause us to walk to our own death. Folly does this. Folly will get you to smile as you walk to your own death. But at the end of all those choices, once sin gets you on the path, you find out it's no fun anymore. But it's already got you on the path, and now you've got to try and figure out, how do I get off the path? How do I get back to where I was? And again, you feel so far east of Eden that you don't know. You don't even realize if there's one path that is easy to walk down and progress far upon it, is the path of sin. Because you'll turn around and you go, ooh, this was a bad choice. How far away is the Lord? And he'll be much farther than you remember him being. It is like where one step is a mile. In the Christian life, it'll feel like one step is an inch in our Christian growth. But when it comes to sin, when we step through that gate that promises wisdom but is really folly, and we start choosing sin, when we look back and want to know, how do I get this back? Because this path isn't pleasant. We find out that we're a lot further down that path than we realized. But that's the blessing that wisdom brings to your life. In other words, wisdom holds the keys to a good life, a pleasant life. There are so many whose lives, internally and externally, are just not pleasant lives. They're filled with so much turmoil, and they are filled with so much discontent that their lives are not pleasing to them. And they don't seem happy. And often they're not very pleasant to be around either. They're always complaining about something, how hard their life is, how hard this is, how they wish that this would change, or they wish that that was different. They just don't seem to have a good life. Now, often if they're Christians, they're more subtle than that. Your lost friends will be like that. Your lost friends will walk in and say, my wife is the worst, or I'm just stuck in this marriage, or something like that. And Christians are more subtle in our complaints. We've at least got a little bit of Pride and Prejudice, like complaining decorum. And so we'll just say things like, I'm just worried about this. Or I just, I'm a little concerned, or I'm really struggling with the way Gabby is. I don't want to talk about Gabby. I'm just going to say I'm really struggling with Gabby. I wouldn't say Gabby's the worst. I'd say I'm just really concerned. I can't pick on Gabby anymore. That just feels uncomfortable. Sorry, Gabby. You never deserve that. Now, Gideon, no. So they'll do things like that, and it makes it very clear that they're just not pleased with how life is going. And often it's because of other people that are making their lives unpleasant. And what happens is that people like that will often try and find answers to getting a good life. That's what they want. They know this path is not a pleasant one, and I don't want to continue on this path. And so I want a good life. And whatever means I have to do to get that, and they'll try and draw you into that woe is me world that maybe if you're on that path with them, you can help them understand. And the reason is that they're pursuing an answer, but the reason they're stuck on that unpleasant path is they're often not pursuing the right way to get to that answer. This is what happens when we get stuck on a path of folly, is instead of choosing the thing that is going to bring a good life, we just choose more folly. And so instead of committing and disciplining ourselves and doing the thing that we know is wise, we do another foolish thing, and we wonder why we're still not happy. But we think that if we do this foolish thing, perhaps 2 rungs will make it right. And they never do. Because it is only wisdom that promises pleasantness. It's only wisdom that promises you to be able to look at your life and be satisfied with what's there. And normally the people who are least satisfied with their lives are good at looking at the lives of others and telling them how dissatisfied they are with their lives as well. But wisdom makes for a pleasant life. For just a good life. I mean, I love my life. I cannot believe sometimes that I get to live it. Sometimes I'll be lying in bed with Leslie, 2 separate beds, like Lucy and Ricky, and I'll just say, I can't believe I get to live this life. I can't believe this is my life. This is crazy. This is wild. I can't believe the marriage I have. I can't believe the kids I have. I can't believe the church that I have. Like when I look at those things, I think they're the best of all these things. But I know that none of that came from me. It's a blessing. But I also know that it's a blessing that I can see built on a foundation of wisdom. The more wise choices we make, the more we pursue wisdom, the more pleasant our life becomes. Doesn't mean that there aren't hard moments. But the path has a very clear and pleasant trajectory. If you want a pleasant life, what you need is wisdom. And the voice you need to hear is wisdom, because here God promises us that if you are walking in wisdom, all her ways are pleasant. If your life is not pleasant, then you need to apply wisdom to that pathway. Because if you are on an unpleasant, not good, not satisfying life, then you can know you are not on the ways of wisdom, because her ways, the Bible says, are ways of pleasantness. And if you spin your wheels by trying to spin them into more folly, doing another wrong thing to try and fix the wrong that's there, you'll never find the happy life. Commit your ways. If you're not pleased with any aspect of your life, you should bury yourself in chapter 2 of Proverbs. You should memorize chapter 3. If you can list all the things you can complain about in your life quicker than you can list the rules in Proverbs chapter 3, there's your problem. Those things should be written on your heart. Those things should be what you pursue, because here at the end of laying out those things, God tells us, I will bless you with a pleasant life if you get wisdom. So what is wisdom so far? Wisdom is precious. Wisdom is pleasant. What's the next thing? Wisdom is peaceful. I hate when all the things begin with the same letter, but these actually will. Zach would be so happy because it's not forced. It's actually there. Look, it even, this one, verse 17, it's already got a lot of P's in it. Now in the Hebrew, it has no P's. But here, her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. Everyone wants a peaceful life. Everyone. Here we see wisdom promises you peace. God's saying, look, you listen, you take the path of chapter 2. You heed the rules of chapter 3, and I will bless you. And one of those blessings is peace. That God says that peace is on every path of wisdom. Every path. All her paths are peace. We might look at a decision we need to make, and we might be able to say, well, I could go this way, or I could go that way. None of those options seems foolish. And wisdom could possibly be found upon both of those paths, but one of the things found on every path of wisdom is peace. And peace is a great blessing in the Bible. You could say, perhaps the greatest blessing in the Bible. We could debate it. I would win, but we could debate it. It's one of the few Hebrew words that Christians are familiar with. Shalom. We know shalom. For those who find wisdom, peace is theirs. One of the blessings God gives, one of the blessings he adds along that path is peace. And not just peace someday, not just peace at the end of the path, but peace along the path. Man was made for a peaceful life with God. And sin stole that. Sin stole that peace and then kicked us out of the place of peace. And we found that life east of Eden is just not very peaceful. It is red in tooth and claw in so many ways. These lives of conflict that we have, they strain us. They're tiring. And that constant stress begins to wear us out. Which is why the great promise that wisdom gives peace along her paths. It's interesting that peace is a pursuit of people. It's something we want naturally. And it's a good one to have. We should strive to live peaceful lives. This started just flood us with all the scriptures that promise us peace and all the great blessings of peace to Christians. But I stuck with Hebrews 12:14, where it says, strive for peace. Strive for peace with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. So peace and the pursuit of peace and the blessing of peace and the hope of peace, it's a big Bible theme. It's something we're commanded to strive after. In fact, when you go and you look at peace is mentioned in every book of the Bible, except one in the Old Testament and one in the New Testament. 5 spirit points to the first person who can find the answer to that. Not now. Don't do that now in the sermon, but later. 1 book in the Old Testament, 1 book in the New Testament where peace is not mentioned. That's it. It's mentioned in every other book has something to say about peace that God gives to his people, about the hope of peace, about the blessing of peace. So 64 of the 66 books of the Bible, God talks about peace to his people. So peace is a significant, overarching Bible theme from Genesis to Revelation. So you can already cross those books out. Neither one of those are one of the two. From Genesis to Revelation, God is talking about peace. So when God promises here that peace is not just on the path of wisdom, but that all the paths of wisdom are peace. He's offering us a hope. He's offering us a hope that's integral to the heart of man, that he placed in the heart of man. And something integral to the blessing of the Christian life. That when he says he blesses us with peace. If you want a peaceful life, then the only life that offers peace along its paths is wisdom. And I will say this, the opposite is true. In my 17 years of being a pastor, and in my however many years of being a Christian, 34 years of being a Christian, I can tell you this. Wisdom offers peace. Sin brings chaos. Sin brings chaos to lives. Sin brings chaos to marriages. Sin brings chaos to raising children. Sin brings chaos to churches. Sin never brings peace. And what's crazy about that is sin will lie to you and tell you it's actually going to bring peace. The person who feels like they just have to say something, feels like they got to say it, and the end result to this grenade, this will be the only grenade that blows up into flowers, but by golly, I got to say it, or I got to text it, or I got to do it. But I bet in the end it's going to bring peace. But sin never does. But we're tricked. The serpent has always been crafty. And he will trick us into thinking that this will help. It will help me, or it will help the situation, and it never does. It always only makes things worse. Why? Why does it make things worse? Because sin loves chaos. It doesn't want peace. Sin doesn't want peace. Sin isn't like, okay, if you do this one thing for me, I'll do this one thing for you. It never does that, but we think that it will. We think of what's about to come off our tongue, and we would say, would the Lord have you say this? Has the Lord ever spoken to you like that? Has the Lord ever done it? We look at a text. Would you look at this text rightly and ever really send this? No. But we'll think, because sin will trick us into thinking, this will help this time. And it never does. Because sin loves chaos. I mean, the devil wasn't shocked at the outcome of the whole garden thing. Right? He wasn't sitting with Adam east of Eden and go, golly, Adam, I really thought the tree thing was going to help out. Shucks. My bad, bro. I'll see you next time. Our kids better watch out for each other. That's not what happens. He knew he wanted to bring the chaos. He wanted to stain the image bearers of God. and their peaceful life in this world. See, sin will never lead to peace. None of its paths are peace. None of its paths are peace. All of the paths of wisdom are peace. And none of the paths of sin are. The ways of wisdom are ways that bring peace. Now, with that, we need to say, this does not mean that the wise way is the way that is the most peaceful to everyone involved. I mean, this isn't saying that you can pick the path of wisdom based on which is the most peacefully perceived path. You know, this isn't just sin never rocks the boat. That's not what this is saying. Right? Oh, this is going to rock the boat. This is going to cause, disruption. Just give in. Just do what they want. Just keep the peace. It's a promise not for how to pick the path, but a promise for what you'll feel when the path is picked. And I say this all the time in counseling. When it comes to making decisions in your life and deciding what you should say, what you should do, how you should handle this, how you should act or not act, if you choose the right thing, the thing you know is right, even though it might be hard, even though you might have to apply great levels of self-control in doing it, even though it might be difficult, but you look at it and you say it's the right thing, if you will choose that right thing, you will never wonder what could have been. But if you choose the wrong path, then you will always wonder what could have been. And I have to tell you, I can't promise that what you lost by choosing the wrong path you will ever get back. That's the chaos that it gives. Just like you couldn't promise Adam, hey, do this, and in 3 days you'll be back in that garden. What I mean is this, if you do what you know to be right, you're never going to regret it. You will never regret it. And we know this. We know this. Like, no one has ever come up to us and said, I did the right thing, and it was the worst. I regret doing the right thing. I really do. If there's one thing I want to teach you kids, sometimes the right thing just isn't worth it. No one ever says that. You never look back and think, oh man, I wonder what life would have, I wonder if life would have been better if I just sinned a little more. But if you give in to those intrusive thoughts, if you do what you know you shouldn't, even if it feels small, like an insignificant sin, or even if you feel like the other person really, has given in too, right? Well, they're already sinning, so one of us is in the water, maybe two of us will be better. If you give in to those things, you'll always be able to look at that moment in your life and wonder where the path of your life would have led if you hadn't given in. What I'm saying is if you follow the path of wisdom, you don't have that regret. You don't have that wonder. You have peace along all of its paths and no regrets. Wisdom offers the peaceful life that all of us want. This is the blessing that it gives us. Now, with a couple things about this peace, there is a fake peace, and that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, Jesus tells his disciples that there is a peace that the world gives. And in the Old Testament, there were false prophets who said peace, peace, when there was no peace. We're not talking about being fake, slapping a smile on everything sort of peace. We're talking about real peace. Peace with God, peace with one another, peace with your life, where it is, where it's going. That's the type of peace we're talking about. Genuine, heartfelt peace, not pretend peace. Some of you right now would just settle for pretend peace because you can't even slap a smile on anymore. You've gotten so far away from the paths of wisdom, you can't even pretend to be happy. The other thing I think is important to point out for us and the confidence, because sometimes, again, this path can seem so, like, how in the world can I have this? It seems like peace is so far away, and it seems like such a great promise. This is a blessing that the Lord promises that should be for us, should not be able for us. We should not, as children of Adam, be able to have peace outside that garden. It should have been forfeited to us. But this peace can be yours And I'll tell you this, and this peace is yours already as a Christian. This peace has been purchased for you by Christ. This is not a hope. This is not a wish. This is not a promise that someday will be. This is a promise that has found its fulfillment in Christ Jesus. In the Gospels, Jesus offers his disciples peace. But the peace he offers us is peace he gives us at the end of his war. He says in Matthew 10:34, "Do not think that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I've not come to bring peace, but a sword." Christ won your peace on the edge of a sword. Christ came to battle sin and to win our victory so that we might have peace. That's why the angels were able to declare at his birth a message of peace on earth, and Jesus didn't show up and say, "No, not really, angels. Don't say that." Because it was a peace that would come only after the most violent and sinful death that creation has ever experienced. Peace can be ours because Christ has purchased peace for us. So have that confidence, that faith that knows peace is yours. You haven't forfeited because you didn't earn it. It was purchased for you by Christ. And the peace that you have, you cannot lose because it is not yours to gain and it is only God's to give. And if you have Christ, he has purchased that peace for you and he will give it to you. And this is the folly of it all. This is why it's so crazy for Christians to not live lives of peace and why it is so mocking to what we have and why I'm sure Satan just rejoices more in the lack of peace he gives us than even the lack of peace he took away from Adam and Eve. It's because it's been won for us already. Christ has made a way for us to live peaceful lives. And the only way we don't have it is if we're trampling underfoot that sacrifice that he gave. When we choose a path of folly and chaos instead of wisdom and peace. So when it comes to deciding if I should give into that anxiety, when self-control is wanting to flee and trying to make you flee with it, don't leave the path of wisdom. Why? Because it'd be foolish to leave it? Yes, because it would be foolish to leave it. That should be enough. But also, out of honor for Christ and his glory and his sacrifice, wisdom made flesh to purchase for you a peace you should have forfeited long ago. Wisdom is precious, pleasant, peaceful, and more. We'll finish up the last two of what wisdom is, the last two promises that God gives, the blessings of wisdom next week, and hopefully. But let me give you a few points of application and we'll be done. First, this is not about what wisdom will bring to your life. These are the blessings that come with wisdom, and the goal of laying out these blessings is so that you would say, wait, that's what I want. How do I get it? And the Bible is telling you here through wisdom. So if you want a pleasant life, you're supposed to want that. You're supposed to hear, wisdom will make your life pleasant, and go, but I want that. You're supposed to go, wisdom will make your life peaceful, and you go, I want that. That's what you're supposed to do. God is using your natural affections to drive you to the answer. He's saying, how do you get it? Through wisdom. These are natural and even noble pursuits. What did we see in Hebrews? Strive for peace. These are noble pursuits that are integral to the human heart. We should pursue them and then realize that wisdom is the only way we can realize them in our lives. So last week we talked about pursuing a rich life. And then we see that wisdom brings a wealth beyond sort of stuff that the world can offer. So you'll pursue wisdom. Well, this week, what should you do? This week I encourage you, pursue a happy life. Pursue a pleasant life. Want that. Pursue it. Go after it. We all want to look back at our lives and we all want to have comfort and feel comfort rather than regret or despair. We want lives where at the end of our days we die with a smile. We want marriages that feel good. We want kids that aren't problems. We want lives that matter. We want to live a good life. And I'm telling you, that's a good thing to want. And I'm telling you also, there's only one way to get it. Wisdom. Want that thing. But if you really want it, don't listen to Satan deceive you into seeking it in a way that don't let, like, if Satan calls you, I wish sometimes that our minds came with that, spam risk warning when thoughts creep into our heads. Because what will happen is, I want this, and then this call will come in, and it's from the serpent, and we answer the phone, and it says, good news, you've just won this. Really? How do I get it? All you have to do is give me your Social Security number. Okay, I always wanted that. That's what Satan does to us. We want to live pleasant lives. We want to live peaceful lives, and he comes in, and I for some reason I feel like he's always got a cigarette. He comes in and says, I got a way to give it to you. And we listen. When the Bible is laid out for us, no, here is the way to get it. Here's how you have it. Wisdom will give it to you. Well, how do I get wisdom? Well, did you not read chapter 2 and chapter 3? I just told you how to get it. I told you the path. I laid out for you the path. I laid out for you the way to get there. And I gave you help along the path in chapter 3. So if you want these things, go back and read again. Go back and pray for those things. Want those things. Desire those things. And if you do, you will find all of these things. And if you don't find these things, go back to those things. Because if you have those things, these are the things I will give to you. Pursue these things. Want a pleasant life, but know that it only comes at the hands of wisdom. So pursue a pleasant life. Pursue a peaceful life. Peace is an important thing we were made to pursue in our lives. We want rest. We were designed to live a restful, peaceful life. Sin took that away. Christ won it back for us, paid for it in his own blood. So your desire for peace is a natural desire. Long for peace and know that wisdom is offering peace along every one of its paths. Every one of its paths. All of its paths. All of its ways. All of its paths are peace. And so know that if the path you are on is one that is not bringing you peace, is not resulting in peace, it's probably because it's actually a foolish path and not a wise one. So quit choosing it. Quit thinking that if you go one more mile down this path, maybe you'll get there. If you do it one more time, if I act this way just once more, maybe that'll get through to them, or maybe this will result in that, or maybe that'll bring the change that I want, either in myself or in someone else. And so I'm going to keep doing the foolish thing, even though I know the wise thing is over here. I think that this might work, and it's just going to get you further and further and further down the path of folly and the chaos that comes with it. And the whole time wondering where peace is at. If you keep acting this way in your marriage, wondering why you're not happy. If you keep acting this way in your parenting, wondering why you can't figure out how to raise your kids, it's probably because you're being a fool and you just keep on doing foolish things. And going, I don't know why I'm not at peace. Why am I not at peace? Why am I not at peace? Choose the path of wisdom. And if peace is not on your path and hasn't been on your path for a while, it's a good time to look and say, maybe I'm not on the wise path. I'm not saying that the instant you choose something, it's going to be peace in your home. The instant you do the right thing. The first time that you don't say what you want to say and say what you should say for the Lord's glory and your good, instantly that other person is going to melt and, it'll be like seeing the Lord face to face. And the answer will be, I'm not promising that. But if you keep doing the same thing and it's not producing peace and you're just doing it because you think it's a good idea, or you think it's going to work, recognize that path is never going to. It's like the other day I was trying to get somewhere in Texas, driving through Texas, which I love doing because they actually have reasonable speed limits. So I'm driving through Texas, and I was looking for a certain highway. So I don't like my phone to tell me what to do because I am a man and have an innate map inserted into my brain from the Lord. And I can feel where cities are, even if I've never been there. And so I I was going and I wasn't listening to him. I think Jack was listening to, no, Peter was listening to YMCA on the phone. That's what he's doing. And so I'm driving, and I was like, I don't think this is the right way. And I was looking for the highway that I needed to be on, and I didn't see the sign off the side of the road. You know how it says you're on highway, whatever. And I was like, where's that? There haven't been any signs saying highway, what's it, what? And so I said, Peter, phone. Peter, phone. And he's like, YMCA. I was like, Peter, phone. And I got the phone, and I looked, and sure enough, I then went to my noble assistant, Mr. AI, and he showed me I had missed the turn. And so I turned around and went back. But if I'd have kept going, you know what? I haven't seen any signs saying this is highway, whatever, but I'm pretty sure it is, right? And there's been no sign saying this is the way to that city, but I bet if I keep on it, I'm going to get there. You know, I'd have ended up in the panhandle of Oklahoma and wondered how I got here. But that's what we do in life. One of the great things, if in your life, if you're never passing in your life a sign that says peace, and you keep wondering why I don't have any peace, when the Bible says that all the paths of wisdom are peace, if it doesn't seem like any of your paths are peace, it might be time to realize that you might be on a path of folly, and you just need the wisdom to see it. Certainly don't double down, I'll tell you, which is often what I see happen in situations. When I'm counseling people and they've made a wrong choice, what happens is they make the wrong choice, and instead of admitting that they made the wrong choice and getting off of it and doing something else, they just double down on it. They double down on doing it because they don't want to admit that they just made a really bad choice that might have messed up the marriage that they think they want to fix. They just messed up this relationship, and it's hard to admit that the thing I thought would fix it actually made it worse. And I'll tell you this, that's never a good life. I feel like everything I try to fix, I make worse physically. And it's hard when you're in a situation, you want to make it better, and you realize that you made a foolish decision that might have made it worse for you and for them and for everybody involved. But don't double down and make it double worse. Pursue peace by pursuing wisdom, because God promises with wisdom, all her paths are peace. I want you to have a peaceful life. I want all of you to live peaceful lives. I want you to have restful lives. I mean, partially just as a pastor, that would give me a very restful life, right? If you guys are living very peaceful lives, that as a pastor, that's cake, man. That's great. If you're just calling to be like, hey, I've got to tell you how great my wife is again. And I know you're tired of hearing of it, and I know this, but I just want you to know I am so blessed. Like, I love to hear that. If you're like, man, you won't believe what my children are doing. You won't believe, hey, I just want to tell you, man, I just love this church so much. I love you so much. It's just so wonderful. Like, those sorts of things, that'd be great. I mean, I want you to have that. And if your life is chaos, my life gets sucked into that. But I also want you to have a peaceful life, and chiefly, because I'm hopefully not that selfish, I chiefly want you to have a peaceful life because that's what Christ has purchased for you. That's what the blood of Christ bought for you, and it would be sad for you to never experience it and know it until at the end you look back and see all that you missed by your folly. You won't lose what he purchased. You won't lose the peace that will be yours at the end, but you'll lose some of it along the way. And I don't want that for you. Some of your lives have been chaotic since you were children, and you've gotten so used to chaos, you've grown up in it, you've lived in it, you're almost codependent on the chaos. But Christ has purchased for you not just a peace someday, but a peace for today. And it can be yours. Find wisdom, and God will fill your life finally with peace. But if you keep chasing sin, you'll only know the chaos it feels like you've only ever known your entire life. So pursue peace, Christian, and you'll find yourself pursuing wisdom, and that means you'll find yourself pursuing Christ. And in the end, you'll find your life a garden that grew better fruit. Let's pray. let's take a moment to glory in our Christ. Take a moment and thank God for these promises. Just thank Him for them. Again, we don't deserve any of these. We deserve to forfeit them. We deserve to forfeit them at the very beginning of our lives. We should have forfeited them multiple times over. And yet here God promises. He gives us a guide to how to get wisdom, and then tells us that when we do, these are the blessings He will give us. Purchase for you, sure. Purchase, certain, by the blood of Christ. So thank God. Thank God that a pleasant life can be yours. Thank Him that a peaceful life can be yours. Not only that these paths are available, but that He gives you guidance for how to find them, how to know them, and how to know what's not them. So just take a moment to thank Him for that. And thank Him for Christ. Wisdom made flesh. Imagine if all of these promises would only be accomplished if it was all based on your work. Christ has purchased these things for you. So just thank God for Christ. And the confidence that'll give you that you can know the path, you can walk the path. All of those things are only possible because of Him. And now ask the Lord. Say, Lord, please give me a pleasant life. Ask Him, say, Lord, please give me a life of peace. It's what I want, and I know I should want it. It's right for me to want it. Don't let the devil make me feel guilty for wanting these things. And show me, Father. Father, help me to walk the path of wisdom that promises these things. Ask Him to deliver you from the evil one, because let me tell you, you start walking those paths, it is not like you get through the gate and Satan is going to be done with you. When you don't choose his gate and you choose the gate of actual wisdom, Satan does not let you go. So ask Him to deliver you from evil that won't want you to have peace, that doesn't want you to have a pleasant life. Ask Him to protect you, to give you wisdom to see through the craftiness of the evil one, to lay him bare before he lays you bare. Father, we come to you today. And God, in our worship, we just want to praise you, God, for your word. And the promises here, Father, you know who we are, and you fill this call for wisdom with great promises, because we are such children, Father. It should be that we would seek wisdom just for wisdom's sake, but you in your kindness lay before us these great treasures and say, these I will give to you if you heed what I've said in chapter 2 and in chapter 3. These will be yours, sworn by your word, Father. And so I thank you for them, Father. And I thank you for how they do stir in us a desire, a natural, innate desire for these things. And I pray, Father, that you would use that to fix our eyes on the wisdom that brings it. Please, Lord. Cover our ears, silence any folly that wants to distract us, anything that wants us to heed our way rather than your way and make excuses for it, God. Center us, fix us on you and on your word and the wisdom found there. Please, Father. I ask, Lord, on behalf of our church, I ask that you would give us pleasant lives. Good, long lives, weighty lives that matter. that at the end we can look back, and along the way we can look and say, I am happy. This is a good life. And Father, I ask that you would give us peace, Father. That every one of our relationships with each other, in our homes, Father, all of those would be lives of peace. That, Father, we would know the peace and the rest that only you can give us. And that we would be confident in a world that it is so easy to believe that chaos reigns, to know that peace has been won at the edge of the sword by our Christ. That he is putting his enemies under his feet, and that he has purchased for us through his blood a peace that surpasses all understandings, not just one day, but today. Please, Father, help us to see that and know it and feel it in our lives. Give us that peace, Father. Lord, please show us the ways of wisdom. Help us to understand. Help us to even ask for these things. And God, deliver us from the evil one. Glorify your name, Father, in all that we do. Holify it, that you might be seen as the one true God, whose truth is seen in the lives of a people who are so different from the rest of this world. Please, Father. It is in Christ's name that we ask these things. Amen.